Well, good morning, councillors, and good morning to members of our community viewing in on live stream to our special meeting of today, the 30th of May 2022, to essentially adopt our position and submission to the Boundary Change Commission in relation to the proposal to transfer Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview. We are in Dirumble country, councillors, so as is customary for us, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, being the Dirumble people, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and pay respects to all Indigenous cultures within our community. We have a number of apologies today, councillors. We have Councillor Eastwood is an apology. There's been a recent passing in his family. His father passed away, so he's actually in Tasmania attending the funeral. We have Councillor Hutton today, who is away on Local Government Association of Queensland business in Brisbane. And so that essentially leaves the five of us. We also have online the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Carl Dendel, who is also attending a family funeral in Bundaberg today, but Carl's online. Just quickly whipping through the agenda, councillors. The leave of absences and apologies have just been discussed. There are no declaration. Oh, sorry. Are there any declarations of interest in matters on the agenda? Councillor Mather, I believe you have one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have the declaration.
Would you like to read it out? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is addressed to the Chief Executive Officer. Dear Kyle, I wish to inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest as defined in Section 150EN of the Local Government Act of 2009, in the matter of proposals being considered by the Local Government Change Commission to realign the electoral boundary to shift Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview to Rockhampton Regional Council. The conflict of interest arises as I currently reside in the Glenlee locality, and the outcome of the decision may have an impact on my personal affairs, including what rates are paid on my residence and my eligibility as a councillor of the Livingstone Shire. As a result of my conflict of interest, I will absent myself from the meeting while the matter is considered and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Mather.
And may I present this to you, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Councillor Mather, you're leaving the meeting, are you? Okay. Yep. Thank you. So, councillors, there are there any further declarations of interest? Okay. There are no public forums or deputations or presentations of petitions. No councillor delegate or reports. No questions or statements or motions on notice. And nothing from the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. So, councillors, that brings us to the sole matter for today's meeting, which is 11.1, the Boundary Change Submission, Local Government Change Commission report. So, councillors, we've all had an opportunity to review this. We'll go into debate straight away, I think. I'm going to move it. Seconded Councillor Friend, thank you. And obviously, councillors, there will be opportunities for questions, but what I'd like to do now is read a statement I have prepared, and I apologise for reading this, but I don't normally do that. But one, this is of such significance that I wanted to read something because I was keen to make sure I didn't miss any of the key points. So, councillors and members of our community, it saddens me to have to move this motion today. I'd hope that Livingstone Shire could avoid being in a position of having to defend its borders and its territory from what I consider to be a blatant land grab, brought on by Rockhampton Regional Council from a position of avarice and selfishness. The decision to pursue a boundary change with the Minister is designed to benefit RRC and RRC only. the current RRC Council cannot hail this boundary challenge as the work of the former Mayor Margaret Strelay. The current RRC Council had the opportunity to make this challenge go away as part of a motion put before the elected members in this term of their council. But as we know, they voted unanimously to continue to push for the boundary change. Nor can they assert that the former Livingstone Mayor Bill Ludwig was in favour of boundary change. Evidence available from within LSC and other sources reveals the opposite. Pardon me. All this boundary challenge will do, councillors, and has already done, is to drive a huge wedge between the Rockhampton and Livingstone communities that will undo much of the good collaborative work that has happened between the two councils in this term of office. The responsibility rests solely with the elected members of RRC in this regard, colleagues. As you know, councillors, QTC undertook a financial analysis of the impact of the proposed boundary change on both councils, and the report is available on the Electoral Commission of Queensland website for those interested in reading it. LSC, as you also know, is classified as a weak council according to the criteria established by the various agencies within the Queensland Government that assess and monitor local governments in this state. The QTC report clearly shows that proceeding with the boundary change will threaten our sustainability, Livingstone's sustainability and viability. That is, it will make a weak council even weaker. The QTC report is unequivocal in this. It clearly points out that all LSC's sustainability ratios significantly deteriorate in the wake of a boundary change. The financial analysis by QTC also clearly states the potential impact on rates should the boundary change proceed. If it happens, the year of effect would be 2024, that is, after the next local government election cycle. QTC studied the impact on LSC and RRC over the 10-year period following 2024 and concluded that the impact on rates would be diabolical for this council. My words, not QTC's. In 2024, the rates for the three suburbs under challenge pardon me, would decrease by around $600 per year, but the rates for every other property in LSC would increase by $161 and would progressively increase to an extra $250 per property by 2034. Ratepayers of RRC would realise a rates reduction of approximately $40. RRC's campaign asserts that the boundary change is the fairest thing for everybody, quote unquote. On what planet, councillors? On what planet? On what planet is it fair to significantly, thank you, disadvantage one community to the benefit of another? That is one of the most unfair propositions I have heard of. Again, this is totally selfish and self-serving and shows no consideration for the residents and ratepayers of Livingstone. Councillors, RRC has made comment in the media in recent weeks about an offer they made to Livingstone to acquire Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview. Mayor Williams was quick to point out in the media that LSC had refused the offer. Without categorically stating it, the implication could be drawn that LSC is somehow being uncooperative and perhaps belligerent. Well, councillors, let's discuss the offer for a moment, shall we? So that all stakeholders are aware of its nature. 50% of the rates for the 50% of the rates for the three suburbs for the next 10 years was offered up. Why would we accept 50% of the rates when under the current regime we would continue to receive 100%? Secondly, RRC committed to writing to Queensland Treasury Corporation to have $10 million of Livingstone Shire Council's debt waived. This is mind-boggling in its naivety, and I can only imagine the reaction of QTC. In fact, I wonder if QTC is even aware of this proposal. There are approximately $57 million in LSC assets in situ within these suburbs, as you know, councillors, and we have been offered approximately 13.5. What person or council in their right mind would consider this to be an attractive offer? It doesn't stack up in a commercial sense, and the QTC component is simply astounding. In my 45-year career, I have never come across anything like this. Ladies and gentlemen of the LSC and RRC communities, would you consider this to be a fair offer? Again, I fail to see how this is the fairest thing for everybody, but I'll leave that to our listeners to judge for themselves. RRC also asserts that the acquisition of Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview is necessary to allow future growth for Rockhampton. This is certainly not supported by the facts, councillors. In the few years, 3 if memory serves, immediately prior to the pandemic, RRC has had negative growth for those years. Negative growth. The Queensland Government's own planning department has clearly stated that RRC has enough land area within its existing boundaries to cater for growth for the next 20 years. So what's the pressing need for taking Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview, councillors? The planning department at a state level says Rocky Regional Council has enough land to cater for its growth for the next 20 years. So based on this, let's be absolutely clear what this proposed boundary change is. It's a land grab, nothing more. Since de-amalgamation, Livingstone has experienced positive growth, and the current projections for LSC project a bright future for our Shire. LSC has identified the northern parts of the Shire as its future growth corridor. Future urban growth, future growth in agricultural enterprise and future commercial development are all part of LSC's vision for the future within the northern corridor, and the planning scheme is being recrafted to reflect this. Apart from using the revenue from the 3 suburbs to support its ailing financial position, what is RRC's plan for the future up there? I also have a question for the residents and ratepayers of Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview councillors who want to be transferred to Rockhampton. The question I would ask is this: do you trust RRC to do what they say they will? The question extends to services, of course, but more particularly to future development and lifestyle. Residents of Glenlee, Glendale and Rockyview choose to live there because they seek a larger lot, possibly more rural lifestyle, and they are not necessarily pursuing a coastal location. This is facilitated by Livingstone Shire Council's planning scheme, which allows for rural residential larger lot living. Around 2016, if memory serves me correctly, when LSC submitted its revised planning scheme for consultation and ultimate approval, RRC objected to the fact that larger lot subdivisions were to be permitted. Now, I'll say that again. RRC objected to the fact that larger lot subdivisions were to be permitted. Fast forward to now, and I wonder whether RRC's attitude has changed. I'm fairly confident it hasn't. If not, under RRC control, the rural residential lifestyle within these areas may well be threatened. They may well be threatened by neighbouring smaller lot subdivisions designed to optimise revenue. Your small acreage lots will be surrounded by smaller lot subdivisions, something that RRC is not something that LSC is not contemplating going forward. So, councillors, I'm going to finish on that note to provide others the opportunity to speak, but we'll leave with these parting words. Leave Livingstone alone.
Hear, hear, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to say a few words, and I too will be reading them. And you may hear the same words come out from many of us here in Livingstone. A blatant land grab. We are using these strong divisive words. A blatant land grab. I personally do not use them lightly. From the proclamation of Livingstone Shire on the 8th of August of 1903, these areas have been an important part of our Livingstone Shire. Firstly, as grazing, land and agriculture. When the rural residential land was developed, they were approved by Livingstone Shire Council in the mid-1980s to 1990. The community of these 3 areas you find today is thanks to Livingstone Shire. Approvals for building and plumbing permits, approvals for larger parcels of land, approvals for lifestyle. The majority of residents living in these suburbs today chose to purchase in Livingstone because it offered the rural residential lifestyle. Rockhampton Regional Council looked at how they could increase their revenue. They chose a well-developed area with loads of continuing development. The northern part of Livingstone is our growth corridor, which in our tenure has had to be placed on hold due to the uncertainty of this deeply concerning issue by a neighbouring council. A neighbouring council who, in the past 2 years, we in Livingstone have undertaken to build a shattered rapport and heal past relations, only to end up in the same continuing battle. The only times these areas formed part of Rockhampton was when there was a forced amalgamation by the state of Queensland. 5 years of a combined council left many residents of Livingstone Shire feeling frustrated and angry. Within the first 2 years of amalgamation, the rates rose by 17%. The consequence of this seething anger and upset resulted in Livingstone Shire Council taking back what had previously been our boundaries, our unique identity, our shire. From the bush to subtropical landscapes to the beach, Livingstone accepted the debt of de-amalgamation because it is more important to shine within its own right, and the majority of residents agreed. After 18 years of debate in 1984, the state agreed to allow Rockhampton to take a slice of Livingstone Shire and claim Parkhurst as its own. This was after Livingstone poured millions of dollars into infrastructure. The state is once again allowing the possibility of a boundary takeover, 3 more slices of Livingstone. There are many concerns if Livingstone loses these suburbs: financial hardship for the residents that are left, a reduction in service, and the inability to progress important future projects. This would also set a precedent for the Rockhampton Regional Council to claim further future slices of Livingstone. And make no mistake, the precedent would be set for other larger local government areas to take what they want from their smaller neighbours, especially those councils that de-amalgamated also: Noosa, Whitsundays, Douglas and Mareeba. I implore all residents of Livingstone Shire to undertake a written submission to the Queensland Electoral Commission between the 13th of June and the 4th of July, and to vote no on the survey that the Commission is posting to all on the electoral roll. With a strong voice together, we shout no. We do not agree. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Friend. Councillor Watson.
I too have a few words I'd like to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is an overwhelming reason for Livingstone Shire residents to vote emphatic no when deciding whether they are favouring handing over the northern suburbs to Rockhampton. Money. If the state government decides to hand over Rockyview, Glenlee and Glendale to Rockhampton, every Livingstone Shire property owner will pay a minimum of $250 in rates every year for the rest of their lives. This is a tax on Livingstone Shire homeowners by a state government favouring a Labor-dominated regional council. It's a decision favouring mates, something that should play no part in local government. If these suburbs are handed over, Livingstone ratepayers will pay an extra $160 in the first year, and then from then on $250 a year forever. This is not a lie. Livingstone Council has done the maths. The figures are based on the total rates that all 3 suburbs will pay to Rockhampton and how much Livingstone will no longer receive. As a result, this is a hip-pock-nerve election. There are 2 sides. One side is Rockhampton with 70,000 votes saying yes, and the other, Livingstone with 30-odd thousand saying no. It's your hip pocket that's going to be hit. Vote no. Livingstone needs every vote to show total support from ratepayers. But I do say, I've created 250 signs with the financial help of friends and colleagues, and they're going all over the Shire to lead you to our Mayor's message. And the other one is, I call on our local member, Brittany Lauger, to lend her support to Livingstone. Leave Livingstone alone.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bello, would you like a few words?
Yeah.
I wanted to start with a statement that I love living in Livingstone. Like, I love living in Livingstone. Yeah. And I think the success of our de-amalgamation outcome was evident that the people, by and large, who live in Livingstone, they love to live in Livingstone. It was that important to them that they were prepared to put a hell of a lot on the line to become an independent council once again, which they were successful in doing so. Much to the thanks of people in the gallery like we have here, Mr. Cranny there, and many, many others, because we all love to live in Livingstone. I'm mindful, though, that the three suburbs that are under contest here, in a sense, or under question as to where they belong, I can understand that some of them may think the attraction of going to Rocky with a cheaper offer of rates may be a good reason to leave Livingstone. I would hate to see any of those people leave Livingstone. And my strong objection to you people leaving is because the balance of Livingstone would be weaker. And my responsibility here as an elected councillor and deputy mayor is to fight for the entire team of Livingstone, the entire body. So I'm not prepared to fight for you in this case, which you may be disappointed by that. I'm not prepared to fight for you to go somewhere else because it would weaken the team that I'm a part of. And so I'll fight to strengthen the team and not weaken the team. So I hope you understand that. There was a great Australian Labor Prime Minister called John Curtin, and he was pivotal in the Second World War to lead Australia through that terrible World War. And there was a statement that they said about him where he showed grace under pressure, and he was known for it. We undoubtedly have been put under pressure by this process, but I believe we can show, like John Curtin, a grace under pressure in the way that we conduct ourselves, and it'll be through the strength of our argument and, importantly, the strength of our character, which I think the Livingstone people will be proud of, that we'll be able to come out on top in this process and demonstrate to the state government that this is a terrible outcome, to have local councils being put through such a divisive process, whereby a small number within our council are going to be asked whether they want to leave their motherland almost and go somewhere else. And you've got the neighbouring council looking over the fence saying, hey, you should come over to us. We're going to offer you something better. The potential for divisiveness is huge in this. I hope the state government recognise that and that they make the right decision. Without going into the arguments of why I'm asking you to vote no out there in Livingstone land, that'll come out over time, and my other colleagues, especially the Mayor, have expressed that very well. I do encourage you to vote no, though. It's vitally important that you do, so that Livingstone can go on to become the greatest coastal council with a wonderful hinterland that Queensland has got. I believe that's our potential. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bello. Right, Councillor Friend.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question in relation to the public agenda that we've shown to members of the public. There's a letter from Sterling Hinchcliffe here. Could we please go into a little bit more detail in relation to the Queensland Government's policy for significant local government boundary changes and what they were actually saying in that letter? That both the people of the areas, the affected areas, and the affected local government must actually agree to this. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor Friend. As you pointed out, the letter from the Minister, dated the 25th of August 2020, states in the highlighted section there that in addition to the above legislative requirements, the Queensland Government's policy for significant local government boundary changes requires that the affected local governments support the change and that the affected communities also support the proposed change. Interesting dialogue. and I'm pretty confident that that's not the case. And I guess that's why, or part of the reason why Minister Hinchcliffe called for the survey to determine what the community's view is. But certainly from the two councils' point of view, Rocky obviously is clearly in favour of the change and Livingstone clearly is not. Part of the other, another part of the local government, the state government policy, as far as I'm aware too, Councillor, is that no council should be financially worse off as a result of this, and that's clearly not the case here. Any other questions, councillors? All right, councillors, we've got the resolution there up on the screen and also on your computers in front of you. It reads as follows. I'll read it for the benefit of the members of the gallery and also for members of the community viewing in on live stream. The recommendation is that 1. Council reaffirms its resolution of the 19th of May 2020 opposing the proposed boundary changes for Rocky View, Glenlee and Glendale. 2. The Livingstone Shire Council submission to the Local Government Change Commission opposing boundary changes to Rocky View, Glenlee and Glendale suburbs be endorsed. 3. In view of Livingstone's opposition to the proposal, Council calls on the Queensland Premier and Local Government Minister to uphold government policy outlined in correspondence dated 25th of August 2020, requiring affected councils support before proceeding with significant local government boundary change. 4. Council authorises phase 2 of the Leave Livingstone Alone campaign, including the allocation of resources outlined in the report. And 5. Council authorises use of marketing collateral and imagery associated with the Leave Livingstone Alone campaign by any person seeking to aid the campaign. Any questions on that, councillors? All right, so we've got a mover in myself, a seconder in Councillor Friend. I'll go to the vote on this. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And as that is the extent of our business today in this special meeting, I thank you for your attendance. I thank members of the gallery for coming along, and I thank members of the community viewing it on live stream for watching. Have a great day.